I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. This week, is the federal government doing enough to fight COVID-19?
Maybe not doing all it can, but it's doing the best it can.
I'm actually surprised that we haven't seen rapid tests get here quicker.
After the funds are gone, what are you going to do?
Considering some places are going back into lockdown, no.
COVID cases in Canada are off the charts, and the outlook for the month of December does not look promising. The federal government has spent billions of dollars in order to try to help, but the numbers are still going up. We took to the streets to ask Canadians if enough is being done to fight back against the pandemic. Our question:
is the federal government doing all it can to fight COVID-19?
I think the Canadian government has done a pretty good job of managing it. I think the Nova Scotia government has done a really good job of managing it. I don't know what else they could do. It's really up to Canadians in general to take it seriously and do what they're supposed to do. I mean, the guidelines are there. All you have to do is follow them.
Yes, and Nova Scotia especially, considering, again, I'm from the States where it's a lot worse. Canada, I think, is doing a really good job, at least in Nova Scotia. I know out west it's getting a little bit more harder hit because it's more for a denser population, but East Coast-wise, the Maritimes, I think they're doing a really good job.
If anything, perhaps governments can fast-track the process or procedure to get the rapid tests. I think rapid tests are just one element of trying to deal with the COVID situation, and I'm actually surprised. I'm actually surprised that we haven't seen rapid tests get here quicker, whether it's Nova Scotia or Canada.
I don't think there's much more the government can do if people won't obey the suggestions of how to stay safe.
Who knew how this would be, right? I think there's lots of things that they need to be doing, like instant testing, and get that perfect so anybody can walk across the street and get a test for whatever reason, whether we want to get away or whether we want to go see a parent, or the testing has got to be the key, and I think they're slacking a little bit on that side.
Yes, I think so. Being an international student, I have seen a lot that Canadian government do for the students. The sub was very great, so I think yes.
I think the federal government is doing all it can to fight COVID-19. I think they've balanced the economic cost with the need for public safety, and I think the federal government is doing a good job, as are the provincial governments.
Yes, I do, actually. The Trudeau's Liberal government, I think, has done a fairly good job. Much better than much of the world, I would say, in comparison, especially to the poor souls to our south. And in fact, Nova Scotia's done better than the whole country, so that's not too bad either. I mean, number one again. In a sad, tragic world situation.
I know Indigenous communities specifically have been speaking about how they don't have enough supplies, how transporting things such as hand sanitizer or masks into the area has been difficult. Moving in and out of communities has been very difficult. I think that their stance with both Indigenous and more white urban areas has been passable, better than others, but there are absolutely many ways that it can be improved.
But I think going back into total lockdown is not such a good idea. I think there's got to be other measures. But overall, the stuff I'm seeing in the news and the steps they're taking, I feel they're doing a good job.
Considering some places are going back into lockdown, no.
What more can they do?
There comes a limit. I think there's so much the government can do, and then there's so much human beings can do, and I don't think human beings are doing enough.
The reality is you really need to look at, long-term care facilities. You need to look at mental health. You need to look at the infrastructure that keeps Canadian citizens healthy, and then figure out, where have we lost our step.
In terms of the economics of it and the economy stimulus packages, I think that's been good. But I think in terms of dealing with the actual pandemic, it's more up to the provinces to know what they need, because all of our needs are obviously so different.
We do not look after our elderly the way we should after they've built this country, right? And same with our veterans. We don't look after them properly. I'd really be happy if the federal government focused more on looking after our own first and then branching out from there.
It's sad because we're learning different things every day about this pandemic, and they get the raw end of the deal because it's like, one minute they're saying they should have done this, and then, oh, they didn't do this quick enough. And every day is a learning experience. Like, the nature of this beast changes, like, every day. So, I don't know. I think they're trying to deal with it as best as they can. You know, could have they done things differently? Sure. But we're learning. It's a learning process.
I don't think they've done everything they can, but I don't know that anybody really knew what to do or what could be done. I take exception to people like Andrea Horwath, who all they want to do is criticize, in this case, Doug Ford, but to be critical when everybody's trying their best and everything costs money, I think is a mistake. I'm not a federal Liberal supporter, but I don't think this is a time for criticism.
I believe that it's done all it can. You know, there are certain things that you have to consider, I guess. One is that people need to eat, and the government can only supply so much. You know, after the funds are gone, what are you going to do?
I think that the federal government is maybe not doing all it can, but it's doing the best it can. I think because, you know what, at the end of the day, nobody really knows what's going on. Everyone has their opinions, which they're entitled to. I find it can be a bit concerning when people start to compare opinions and attack each other, and that's how obviously the country gets separated. So as long as everyone can kind of agree that we have to at least handle this together, I think the government is doing a really good job of pushing that agenda, saying we're kind of all in this together.
I think the federal government's doing the best they can in a bad situation. To be subjective in this case would be a zero-sum game. Could they do more? Probably. Could they do less? Probably. It's hard to say. The second wave is going to make decisions more difficult as the economy continues to be ground down.
Things need to be shut down again. Kids need to stop going to school because kids are full of germs and they are going to spread it a lot more. And I mean, you can't tell little kids to keep away from each other. They want to hug their friends. They want to hang out with their friends. So I mean, that social distancing at school, I don't think is actually happening.
I guess businesses like mine, I'm a musician, we own a studio. We're not able to do promotion or shows or anything. So some of those things I have issues with, but in general, for sure, I think our government's doing as much as they can, right?
Could they be doing more? Yes. Are they? Well, we're not sure yet. Time will tell.
The last 4 years has been a rough go for Canada-U.S. trade relations. President Trump has often said that Canada's trade practices are unfair, and our friendship with our closest friend and neighbor has often been fraught. But when a new administration is sworn in soon, should Canada change its approach? And what should we do? Our question.
How should Canada deal with the next U.S. administration?
I would say tread lightly, in the sense of obviously the U.S. has been and will continue to be our neighboring country where we trade between each other, and that's how things work, and we're going to want to continue that if we want to keep life as normal as it can be. But change happens, and you know what? New people come into power, rules change, regulations change, and I think adapting to the change is really important.
There's a lot of work to do. I'm confident, though, that we have the people underneath the ministers are good bureaucrats. They know what they're doing, and they'll do as good a job as they can do with a volatile place to deal with in D.C. these days.
I believe that we need to open up ourselves a little bit more and allow ourselves to be a little more transparent. So I don't believe that our Prime Minister Trudeau has been all that transparent. I believe there's a lot of stuff that could have been done differently, and hopefully in this next term will be done differently.
Just like work together with them on common issues. Like, we're kind of really close, like against like working with COVID and China and all that kind of stuff. Just kind of working with them, because if we're not together, then it's not going to work.
It's a complicated answer. I think they should take their time and get some advice from other countries that have to deal with the U.S. administration.
I think that the way that we should best deal with the administration is as peacefully and as diplomatically
sort of as civil as possible.
Canada should deal with the next U.S. administration the way it's always dealt with U.S. administrations in the past. We should be fair, we should be reasonable, we should follow all the conventions that we've followed in the past and keep an open mind.
I think that they should try to some degree, come to some kind of like agreement with things, like to be, agree, like still get your points across, but still work with them at the end of the day to make things more smoother and positive than the way the Trump administration did.
Try to improve trade relations ASAP. And we still need to diversify our trade portfolio anyway. So we rely too much on the U.S. as it is. I mean, they are our biggest neighbor, but we do need to be looking elsewhere because Trumpism isn't going away. And so that swing from Trump back to Democrat, it will go back to something like that. Kind of like we go back and forth between conservatives and liberals. I mean, it's like a 9-year difference here, but it's going to come back, and so we need to be prepared.
The U.S. having only themselves in mind is very selfish, and I think that we as a society should be more kind and accepting to others, and I think that if the U.S. isn't really ready to do that, then perhaps we should be much less lenient than we are with our foreign policy.
Well, just forge ahead and continue to try and do things in the best interests of Canada. And let's try and get along. They've got a lot to offer us. We've got a lot to offer them. So let's play nice.
We can only deal with them the way they allow us to. If they add tariffs, then obviously we have to combat that. In terms of diplomatic relations, they've definitely devolved.
I didn't hear from Biden anything concrete or anything that something new that he will come up with and change anything. So in my opinion, always sometimes better the devil you know than a new devil that comes up.
The part that disappoints me with Canada is we tend to be a beacon, yet we never seem to have a strong enough voice to really lead. And for whatever reason, I think it's a great opportunity to form alliances with the EU, possibly the UK now. And so hopefully to take advantage of those opportunities internationally would be important.
As strong and as powerful we think we are, we need the States, and we're just going to have to go along for the ride.
It'll be a big change to negotiate with an institution with a consistent policy that requires different skills and different ways of fighting back if push comes to shove.
I'd have no idea how. I think we got to stand our own ground and actually maybe be a little bit more protectionist ourselves to save our own country first.
They're our closest neighbor. They're our biggest trading partner. They have to try to deal with them. I mean, Trump was impossible to deal with. He didn't like Trudeau, and I think there was no dealing with him. I think that Biden winning will be a good thing for Canada because he's civilized and looks to build relationships where Trump certainly didn't.
I personally think we should deal with them with tact and finesse and show them that we're a tiny bit smarter than them. And you can only do that by being firm in your stance without being too opinionated, if you know what I mean. But Canada has to also stand there and say, this is my land, and you're not going to do this, or yes, you'll do that. It's up to those who are administrators at that point, I guess.
I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think it is, whether we like it or not, it's going to be a necessity to rethink the nature of the relationship. And I don't have an answer. If I did, I'd be running for Parliament. But I'm not. I'm walking to St. Lawrence Market to get some crab cakes.
What was former Prime Minister Lester B Pearsons' nickname? Spike, Ike, or Mike?
I'd say Spike.
Spike?
I'd say the same as well, Spike.
I'm going to say Ike.
Ike, maybe? Is that an option? Ike? Is it right or no?
Mike.
Ike?
I was going to say Spike. Or Spike?
I think it was Mike.
You know what? It was Mike.
That's what I thought.
Lester B Pearson was Prime Minister of Canada from 1963 to 1968. His many accomplishments as a diplomat include winning a Nobel Peace Prize in 1957 for his role in facilitating Britain and France's departure from Egypt during the Suez Crisis. As Prime Minister, Pearson ushered in the Canada Pension Plan, the Order of Canada, and in 1965, the new Canadian maple leaf flag. Lester B. Pearson was affectionately known as Mike, a nickname given to him by his flying instructor during World War I, because he thought Lester was not a suitable name for a pilot. Earlier this year, the Parliamentary Ethics Committee interviewed everyone from the Prime Minister down about the federal government awarding We Charity with a contract to manage a $900 million student grant program. Things went awry when opposition members of the committee started to question the Trudeau family's relationship with the charity, and it emerged that the Prime Minister's mother and brother were both paid to speak at We Charity events. So we took to the streets to see what you think about this. Our question: has the We controversy affected your trust in the federal government?
You know, mistake here is mistake has happened, and the We probably in the beginning was a very good idea. Didn't turn out the way it's supposed to, but I think it's in my vote will not be any effect on it.
I look back and Trudeau, like with this We whole scandal and whatever, it's going to come out. And does it surprise me? No. All politicians, they all, they all have something, right? And time will tell. And if he did something wrong, he's got to be held accountable for it.
The federal government, when they agreed to this huge grant program, they waded in, I think naively, into an operation that really wasn't operating as a charity. It was operating as a PR firm with lots of lobbying connections.
I have an opinion about government. Governments are all people who, although do their best at being honest and true to the country, sometimes have to do things that are not kosher, I guess it is. I don't know how else to put it. No, I don't think it's a big deal for me, this We thing. If he's found responsible and something went down that was dishonest, then Trudeau should pay for it.
There seems to be a judgment problem in PMO, to me. And I think the We thing is just another example of the same thing, that somebody didn't go, hello, maybe we should take a second look at this. And that seems to me to be a pattern. And, go back to the India trip and that fiasco. There seems to be, I don't know, a sort of judgment screw loose in the Trudeau government.
I think they're making a bigger deal out of it than it has to be. And we got more pressing problems right now.
So the We controversy, to me, it was just another example of friends helping friends. We don't know the half. We'll never know the half because everybody's in somebody's boat.
I generally probably wouldn't vote for the Liberals anyway. I'm more of an NDP myself. But if it came down to me voting for the Liberals, I would absolutely keep that in mind, that happened and it would influence my decision to vote for them.
Every government at some degree has some kind of scandal, whether it's big or small. It hasn't affected my faith in the government. Justin Trudeau's government, for example, I lost my job temporarily, and his government formed, say, the CERB, for example, and that was really important. I think he's helped the people out. So the We scandal to me is totally irrelevant. It hasn't affected how I feel about them at all.
People might say, oh, you're pushing your own agenda kind of thing, but if you got the means to get your name out there, then get your name out there, If they're using federal money to market themselves, that's a different story.
I feel like that money could have been allocated somewhere else. It's the We Foundation, right? Oh yeah, I'm actually familiar with We Foundation. I've been to a few We days, Yeah, that shouldn't have happened, and that shouldn't be happening.
I think the We controversy has not been well handled by the federal government.
The amount of redaction, the filibustering in committee, the pressure to not include certain information about the Prime Minister and his family. Just come clean with everything. Like that's what the committees are being stifled. That's my main concern about this issue, is the committee work doesn't, which is the breadth and depth of how governments react to legislation is not happening.
Yeah, I think it has. It just seems to be, at times, it's not the first scandal, if you want to call it that this government has been involved in. So, how many times do you say, oh, well, we've forgiven them, or water under the bridge or whatever? So, yes, I think it has.
The WE controversy has not affected my trust in the government, but I think that the government has to be more vigilant in considering how the public may react to sole sourcing of large contracts.
No, I don't think so. I think the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, I think the people that were around them should have been watching out a little bit more carefully about that stuff. These guys aren't obviously in office for the money. Everyone involved in that is definitely a privileged Canadian, and I think missing $40,000 in expenses in the run of a month or a year, or what that means to them, is just an oversight. I don't think they were out to scam anyone. I think the people that were they're watching them and advising them didn't do a very good job. Doesn't affect how I trust these guys. I'm not a huge Justin Trudeau fan to begin with, but I don't blame him specifically for that, and I don't blame Bill Moreau for that either.
It's certainly made me question a lot of things. Just the way the whole thing has developed and the apparent lack of transparency, I do believe is something that's going to shake a lot of people's faith in the government.
Back in the beginning of November, many Canadian provinces turned their clocks back 1 hour for daylight savings time. And although many of us are used to the shift by now, there's once again talk of getting rid of it altogether. The practice began in the U.S. in 1918 to help save energy during World War I. Yukon Territory, some areas of BC, most of Saskatchewan, and some areas of Quebec do not use daylight savings time and stay on standard time year-round. So, when the time rolls around again, should we spring forward, fall back, or stay put? Our question:
should daylight savings time be eliminated?
Do they need it now? Not particularly. I mean, yes, it's nice to have a bit of sunlight in the morning, but eventually that goes away too, because then it's still dark at 7. So we could get rid of it.
Yeah, honestly, I think it would be a great idea, and just keep everything consistent. So say, for example, how in the spring it's lighter later. I'd like to have that. That could really help people's moods, I think, especially.
But I think nowadays, mostly all it does is throw people off. I don't know if we have too much of a use for it anymore, although I do understand keeping it in place in favor of farmers and the schedule that our bodies have gotten used to with changing back the clocks. Although many people do complain about being thrown off still.
I don't understand why we change it back and forth. I like the extra hour's sleep every once in a while. But no, I do think it should be eliminated.
Yeah, okay. Another hour, 2020 is maybe too much, but yeah, it doesn't bother me. But I am retired too, so that could influence my opinion on that.
Just prepare for it, and I turn my clocks a day in advance to get used to it. And that's what it is. And be very careful the next morning, because you hear about all these people getting hit by cars and things. And it's just a matter of training yourself to get used to it. But I think it's necessary. Otherwise, we're out of whack for a while.
If the provinces surrounding us get rid of daylight savings time, we should get rid of it. I think if you're older and you don't care about children going to school in the dark when you're 65, then you should be in favor of full-time daylight savings time, because you get more enjoyment at the end of the day. So yes, bring it on.
It's only 1 hour, but then when it gets dark at 5 o'clock and you feel like it's 11 and you're like, what's going on here? Let's just stick to one time and that's it.
Yes, get rid of it. It's dumb. It was dumb when it was invented. We don't need this.
I would prefer the Atlantic time zone to go. We start work an hour before everyone else in North America. and we leave an hour before everyone else closes in North America. We lose 2 hours of connecting to North America in the business fold. It would help tourism as well if they knew they weren't going to some foreign planet with another time zone, because a lot of people don't know what the time zones are about anyway, except for their own area, whether state or province. And I would just get rid of the Atlantic time zone.
It's so depressing, and you know that people really struggle with the darkness. Personally, I would love it to get light at 6 and end at 6, but that means we'd have to be in the tropics. I don't see the point. I really don't see the point.
I'm really on the fence with it. I see both sides of it, so I don't mind it one way or the other. If they drop it, I'm okay with it. If they keep it going, I'm okay with it. Yeah, I'm definitely on the fence.
I definitely think daylight savings time should be eliminated. I heard that, I think it was the Yukon got rid of it this year, and it's a smart idea. I would like to see that follow suit, definitely, here in this province. It just, the change of the seasons is hard enough with it getting dark so early, and I don't know, I just don't see the point in it anymore. Seems obsolete.
Yes.
And why?
Because every time I have to do manually change the time in oven and car and all the stuff. And I don't know why they are doing it.
No, emphatically, daylight saving time should not be eliminated. I have friends, family, and colleagues all across the country, and it would just make the problem worse if we weren't all on the same time. So emphatically, no, it should not be eliminated.
Absolutely. So I have a 2-year-old that wakes up at 5:30 in the morning. Now he wakes up at 4:30 in the morning. And I have no idea why. 50 years ago, it may have made sense. Today, no. I don't think anyone's going to miss it. Give me one reason why we should keep it, and I'll listen to it. But if not, it should go. 4:30 in the morning is really early.
No. I know there's those, and even in government, who want it gone, and also in the commerce sector. But I don't believe so, because we've always had it, we've adjusted to it, and to change it, we have to adjust again.
I'm indifferent. I think I could go either way. Having said that, I like to play golf in the summertime, and it's nice to have that time that you know, it stretches to 10:30 at night in the evening in June and July.
No, I love daylight savings time. I think waking up an hour later and thinking it's an hour earlier or vice versa is the best feeling in the world.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.